Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk a little bit about Guild Chat. Yeah, I know, it feels like we only just did a sum up video of Guild Chat, and back then it was 2 in a row, and we're doing 2 in a row here as well, as there have been multiple streams. I'm actually enjoying leaving 2 of them together to sum up at once, because one tends to be weaker than the other, I feel. But anyway, we have had a little bit of a shortage of GW2 videos on the channel. I'm well aware. I do want to apologise a little for that, but right now in the background I am mired in very much change, and I'm really looking forward to a lot of cool stuff you guys are going to be seeing with the videos any day now, or like in a week or 2 from now. But yeah, that's basically caused some issues. Anybody still following the stream VODs are still going up, obviously. But anybody watching those will know that I've been having blue screen issues and all kinds of other nasty crap. So, dealing with that. But let's talk about Guild Chat. There is quite a few interesting reveals here. Specifically, the devs have been far less cagey recently about Salvation past the second of the raid wings, with a healthy dose of other things mixed in there. It actually sounds like the following streams as well are going to continue focusing on Salvation Pass until they eventually release it. Arena haven't really been explicit about that. That's just the vibe I'm getting from watching the streams at the moment. And it would kind of be like a mini version of what they did as Heart of Thorns was coming out, right? Like, they did lots of streams focusing on Heart of Thorns stuff and like the Elite Specializations until it eventually released, or a beta came out featuring said content. And I think what they're doing here on POI is that leading up to the eventual wing release. At the same time, there's some PvP reveals and things going on as well, including a post that went up on the forums. Let's jump in. So the first of the Guild Chats. This featured Nelly Hughes, first of all, for the first little section of it, who was a game designer who worked on a bunch of stuff in Auric Basin. And I've got to say, this first section, it's through no fault of the people presenting the show, don't get me wrong, but I really feel like didn't hit any audience. I don't really see the point of it. Basically, this section of Guild Chat was to teach people the things they can do in the expansion maps so they continue playing them. See, there's a bit of a thing, on the last Guild Chat sum up I talked about how Colin came on and said they were thinking of making some changes, or they were going to make some changes, that specifically addressed the fact if you only have 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes, and you want to do some Heart of Thorns, you're kind of bound to the map metas, and it means you might not have anything to do. A lot of people are complaining about that, and that's a damn valid criticism too, especially for what Guild Wars 2 stands for, and they're hoping to make those changes. So then this Guild Chat comes along, and until those changes go in, I guess they were trying to show us, hey, there's still stuff you can do while you wait for those changes to come in. But here's the thing, this is basically what they said. Hey, you guys, you can do hero challenges, you can do vistas, you can do achievements, you can do, you know, basic things that anybody has already known to do. I think the problem here is that the people complaining that they have nothing to do in Heart of Thorns when they don't have very much time to play, they're not new people who have only just come in and are only just unlocking their elite specialization and only just exploring the map and don't know about all those achievements and don't know about all that on-demand content that exists outside of the metas. Those people are in there, still playing it. The game's very good at actually showing people what there is to do. Maybe the achievement system is a little bit bloated and the UI is not perfectly functional right now. So going on Guild Chat and teaching people about the exalted masks found around the map that people can collect and then get an eventual Bloodstone Dusty, and maybe that has worth, okay? But a lot of this other basic stuff, the people who are complaining about not having enough to do outside of the metas have already done that. Those people are like the people who have played a lot already, and the metas are all they have left. So, I don't know, it was nice, and I was surprised how much Nelly reminded me of an old driving instructor of mine. Like, uncanny, scary levels of resemblance. Like, holy crap, did my driving instructor just learn to speak with an American accent? This is some kind of conspiracy against me level stuff, and I think that's mostly what I took away from that section. Though, there was one quite clear thing they said, and that's that adventures are going to be getting further changes. It's funny, actually, they announced Adventures way back when, before Heart of Thorns came out with the TwitchCon stuff, and they said this. They said that Adventures wouldn't always be accessible, because when the large map metas, such as, you know, the Assault on Tyria were going on, they didn't want people to feel like they were competing for spaces on the map, and some guys are wasting time doing Adventures. If they lock the Adventures out when the large metas are going on, then people who wanted to do the Adventures will leave the map, leaving more spaces for people who actually want to do the large meta. And that makes sense. But it's funny, I discussed this on a podcast with Matt, and he very quickly said, no, that's really silly. The idea of adventures should be that you can keep practicing, keep going. It's going to really suck to have them locked out. And very quickly after launch, they did throw out a patch that made a lot more adventures a lot more accessible. It seems that's not enough for them, because on this guild chat they do further that and say actually they're going to be even more accessible and there's going to be more changes. Not just on when they're available, it seems, but actually maybe even things to do with the adventures themselves. Some of them are still quite difficult, and maybe this idea of accessibility means nerfing them down. But I really don't agree with that. It was my pleasure to go into the jungle just the other day, specifically to try the shootout and get gold, because I haven't got gold on that yet. My main problem with adventures isn't necessarily their accessibility. I never had any problem with those as I played them. My problem is that now that I'm done with my masteries, which I did very, very, very quickly after launch, and I have the basic achievements associated with most of them, I have no incentive to do them. They were a lot of fun, but I have no incentive to go back and do them anymore. The only time I find myself doing them is when I want 100% map participation on a map that already has all the events done. So then you just spam up some adventures like the rubble pit one in Verdant Brink or Leyline Run. You get good at it, you spam your way through, you're at 100%, and then you go AFK for a while and let the rewards roll in. That's basically it for adventures. I think that's the main problem with them, but maybe my experience of them is slightly different to most others. This stream also ended, and I'm going to give this a criminally short discussion for how long the section was. But it was the sound effect guys coming on once again to this time give us a preview of the next raid boss, or one of them that's going to be coming in the next wing, Salvation Pass. I think people in chat got a little bit overhyped. They talked about a lot of different cool sound design things and how to make little creatures out of, I think they were like yogurt boxes. But we got to hear some interesting sound effects that were made with a door, and left to wonder where exactly would this be implemented, and that would not be revealed until next week. So, this most recent Friday, we did have another guild chat, and this one included the preview for the raid boss in Salvation Pass, and it's quite an interesting design. It's a giant sloth. Now, from what I could extract from, the in-between-the-lines speak, it would seem, from the devs there, it sounds like the story precedent of this giant sloth boss is that the magical wind, which recently blew through the Spirit Vale and that entire region of the jungle, activating a lot of stuff, disturbing the area. I guess this magical wind is what affected the sloth and turned it into Slothasor. So that's the name of it, Slothasor. Pretty cool name. Apparently it was originally called Slothasaurus, but then the name didn't work, but loads of people who were playtesting saw it, and then they wanted it back. So Bobby, who's been doing the writing for a lot of this raid, he was really hands-on with speculation and stuff that people were putting out from the original wing. Even just recently, there was somebody spoke to me on Reddit with a huge post about all kinds of interesting lore stuff. I read it through, told them what I thought, and then said, hey, you should just post this online. As soon as they did, the thread really blew up, and who was there in the discussion? Well, Bobby was. It seems like he's really been enjoying writing this. I'm looking forward to what's going on in this next wing, and he named it Slothasor now instead of Slothasaurus, and that's what we've got. But the people talking about it specifically was Crystal Reed and Franco Galetta. Crystal has been doing a lot of the actual mechanical design of the raid. She was responsible for some of the best content I've ever played in Guild Wars 2, so I am always way too excited and interested to hear what she has to say. And I actually saw something really cool in this point of interest. She was incredibly cagey and incredibly private about spoiling the actual mechanics of Salvation Pass. We basically just got these images and this in-game footage of the monster, okay, of the Slothasor. We saw it, she actually spawned it, instead of in its natural home, in its habitat, in the cave that we would fight it in Salvation Pass, it was spawned in Verdant Brink. That, by the way, is a hilarious idea to me, that the devs could just spawn random raid bosses in the open world, and then people would have to go mental with them. But she was very, very cagey about the mechanics, and I actually think that's really important, and I really like that she recognized that. I think, it would be quite easy to see this stream and think, oh, come on, why are they being so secretive? This is really stupid. Like, what is really going to get spoiled? Can't you just tell us something basic? But what you guys really have to understand is the true joy and pleasure that comes from the raids. For most people, when they first come out or when you first start experiencing them, is that idea of progression and is that idea of learning the mechanics and going through. It was recently revealed that the subsequent wings, at least for this raid for now, are going to be balanced around the same difficulty level as the Spirit Vale originally was. And this idea was then met with opposition by quite a few people who were looking to see things get harder and harder and harder. I think it's really easy to warp your perspective of the raid wing and forget how hard it really is once you've been clearing it frequently. If you've been clearing it frequently, you know, ever since it came out, each week you go in there, you do it for the gear, and the rewards really do feel very good when you're good at the raid, because it doesn't take very long and you've got such a high chance of getting all this great stuff, ascended equipment. If you're in that position, you might be looking at the next wing and thinking, man, yeah, I really want it to be harder, I want it to be tighter, I want the checks to be tighter. But what you're forgetting is the struggles that went into finding the strategies initially. The strategies like how to move, everybody getting used to the mechanics that are actually there in moment-to-moment gameplay, but also like your team comp, how that's going to work, all the planning and preparation that goes into that. Most people, I would say, who clear the raid as well, manage to skip a lot of that preparation. You really only truly know the actual difficulty of the raid if you're doing it right at the start without any other guide assistance. See, nowadays in Guild Wars 2, if I go into a random pug, a lot of people will have done the wing before, and those people will have learned the mechanics of the wing from their friends, who will have learned it from their friends. They will have gone all the way back up the chain to the top, you know, first 10 guilds or so that actually cleared it. When you're trying to clear it in a vacuum, when those first 10 guilds don't exist, when you are the first 10 guilds, when you are there at the very beginning and there are no guides and no information, you then see the true difficulty. And having experienced that true difficulty myself when Spirit Veil first came out, having spent 20 to 30 hours grinding away, trying my best. They've hit that mark, guys. It's okay if you get good at it at the end. That is a big part of what raiding's supposed to be. I've said that many times before, and I actually don't mind hearing that the next wings are going to be roughly the same difficulty. And then I also thoroughly don't mind how private Crystal was being here, and I guess ArenaNet in general will continue to be, about even something as basic as the environment this sloth we fight in. You know, maybe there's something really important about that environment that they don't want people to freeze frame and dissect and then, you know, learn and trivialize some of the stuff before they've even managed to get in there. And if that still doesn't settle you, if the idea that, I mean, ArenaNet basically said, yes, we like the no updraft Gorseville kills. We like the fact that you can low man stuff. We like the fact that once you master it, you can push it and do interesting things. And that's why they're not going to make the checks even tighter and even harder, because people aren't going to do that straight away, right? But even if that doesn't put your mind at rest, who knows? Maybe the second raid, they'll tune it a bit better and so on, especially as power creep and people in general get better and better and better at the elite specializations that have gone into the game. So, that's not all from Slothasor, by the way. I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there. There's also a little ad that they showed us. This did, funnily enough, reveal a couple of mechanics. The ad has an auto-attack, stacks burning, a little bit of weakness as well. Supposedly, there are 4 of these things. They're called slublings. And, of course, we were focusing on the visual design of these damn things. And look at them! Alright, this is a sloth, grub, crab/spider hybrid. Yeah, those things definitely exist in the real world. You know, it's funny how crazy and magical and weird some of the creatures on planet Earth actually are. You occasionally find like one of those Imgur albums online, and it's got all these crazy things you had no idea existed. But I'm pretty sure we've hit a true new level of bizarre, ridiculous fantasy here with the slublings. So that's fantastic. And then when they die, they look like they kind of explode. Maybe they'll do some kind of AoE damage. I don't really know. But yeah, that's the fight. It's a giant sloth that's asleep when you first find him. He wakes up. He seems to have been affected by the magic. And it seems that we're going to be getting more information on that as time goes on. Bobby's due for 2 weeks from now, and Ruby straight up said, you know, there'll be more streams talking about Salvation's past stuff as we go forward, which is very, very cool. His also most recent stream wasn't just about the raid. I do feel obligated to mention they talked about PvP as well. I have been swings and roundabouts on PvP, guys, alright? Leagues were coming out, Wooden Potatoes was excited. Leagues were in the game, Wooden Potatoes was doing good, then Wooden Potatoes stalled, got to the end of Ruby, and then swung all the way back down because Wooden Potatoes didn't play enough classes. And then Wooden Potatoes was very sad and did a video where he basically said, oh, I don't think I ranked is for me, guys. I don't think I'm that kind of player. I don't know how much I'll really be playing of subsequent seasons. Well, I don't know. I'm excited. I want to play another season. So we're back to square one right now. All right, it's a new meta. There's new stuff going on. There have been posts talking about the changes, right, with matchmaking. And to put it very shortly, I actually think Hugh did a fantastic bang-up job explaining very, very, very well how the matchmaking system has transitioned from Season 1 to Season 2. So if you don't get a very good idea from my short explanation here, I would definitely recommend actually watching the show. But here's the idea. Last season, they had a system in place which would award bonus pips or take away bonus pips for the situations where matchmaking had got kind of crazy. So if I was matched into a ridiculous pre-made that were way higher at MMR than me, but I managed to hold out on my own or even win, I'd get a bonus pip and maybe they'd lose at a bonus pip. Cool system, cool idea, but looking at the metrics, they found that only about 8% of the games were actually affected by this. And there were a lot of other things that were just blurring and complicating why you got a pip or why you didn't get a pip or why you lost a pip or why you got bonus pips, and it was never really clear to people what was going on. So next season, because that was only affecting a few games anyway, they've just simplified the whole thing. If you win, you get a pip. If you lose a pip. Simple. And then on top of that, if you get into a win spree of 3 games, you will get a bonus pip after that. And what that does is that means the really good teams at the start of the season where everyone's low down and you're all together, the really good teams will get lots of win sprees and they'll accelerate themselves out, and then matchmaking will fix on its own like that. And then lastly, there's also another thing, which are compensation pips, or pity pips, as they were wonderfully called, which is if my situation last season, okay, I was in Ruby, I went on a huge losing spree, and I got pissed off with it. I was like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. I can't be bothered. This is too annoying, all right? Well, now you get if I'd continued to play, and I finally got that next win, I would always get a bonus pip. So you're encouraged to keep playing at least, because you know when you do finally get out the win, you'll get the bonus pip, and then you'll be back on track a little bit quicker. So that's it. It's much more basic as a system now, and there are a couple of other changes going through too. Obviously, some refinement to the meta. They've come to an idea here where if there is a 4-stat amulet, i.e. one of these amulets that actually gives you a lot of stats, and the major stat on it is primarily defensive, okay, so like its toughness main stat, they're going to just start removing those amulets from the game because they do want combat to be deadlier. I am very excited about a deadlier meta, not necessarily because I felt last time I was very bored by the big long stalling out games. I mean, I was a little bit bored, but the class I was playing was a necromancer, so I would just keep rolling more and more condies out, and it would build up to a crescendo and people would eventually die anyway. But it's more because my favorite build of all time to have ever played was a very glassy, very spiky elementalist, and that has just not been a thing for God knows how long, the way I would want it to be a thing. And what basically I need is a deadlier meta, which is what they're pushing for, so that's going to be great. And here we're seeing more examples of them balancing and tweaking PvP through PvP gear like amulets and runes and sigils. And this is really good. I love seeing this in effect because this is the dream scenario where PvP balance is being done that has no effect on any other area of the game. This doesn't mean anything for the actual elite specialization balance and stuff that they're doing. World versus world remains intact from this. PvE remains intact from this. This being done alleviates some of the biggest issues with PvP. You know, a common criticism of Guild Wars 2 is they've been trying to ram esports down our throats instead of actually focusing on the strong areas of the game like their PvE and blah blah blah. And ArenaNet have always, rightly so, come back and said, well, actually, our PvP stuff, the money we're putting into these tournaments and stuff, this doesn't affect the development of the rest of the game at all. But I've always thought, even in the face of that's still not true because the class balance still affects everything, and you're designing it primarily for PvP. But here we're seeing them take a slightly different angle, and I'm really happy that they are, and hopefully the meta is a little bit different, so I'm pretty excited about that. And that's basically it. That's your double guild chat, guys. Guild Wars 2 videos will get far more regular. I'm in limbo, though. I'm in flux. I've got a lot of things going on, a lot of things I'm excited about as a YouTube content creator that I'm just like going to start doing to the videos to make them a bit more professional, make them a bit better. But there's a lot of pieces that I've got to push in. So if it's still a little bit sporadic, except for the X2, I do apologize. But I assure you the light is at the end of the tunnel, and we'll be out very, very shortly. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, and I will see you next time.